His name was Daniel, and for 3 years, he had been learning how to live in a world that no longer made sense. Stay with me until the end. You'll see why. It was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving when Sarah died, not slowly, not with time to prepare, not in a hospital bed where he could hold her hand and whisper everything he never said. A delivery truck ran a red light on Maple Street. She was crossing with groceries. The bag split open. Oranges rolled across the asphalt like small suns scattering into the gutter. She never made it home. Daniel remembered the officer's voice at the door, the way his badge caught the porch light, the way the word accident sounded like an apology that meant nothing. He remembered the hospital hallway, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the smell of disinfectant and something else, something final. He remembered the doctor's face, the gentle hand on his shoulder. The words that didn't land because his brain refused to process them. I'm so sorry. Daniel was 34 years old, and he decided right there in that hallway, with his hands shaking and his chest collapsing inward, that he would never love anyone again. Not because he was angry, not because he blamed God or the universe or the driver who ran that light, but because he couldn't survive losing someone twice. Love, he realized, was the most dangerous thing a person could do, and he was done being brave. 3 years later, Thanksgiving week, Daniel had become a ghost in his own life. He went to work at the insurance firm downtown. He nodded at neighbors when they waved. He bought groceries on Wednesdays, never Tuesdays, and avoided Maple Street entirely, even if it meant driving 15 minutes out of his way. He'd stopped accepting dinner invitations 6 months after the funeral, stopped answering when friends asked if he was okay, stopped pretending he had anything left to give. He wasn't okay, but he was surviving, and that, he told himself, was enough. His apartment looked the same as it did 3 years ago. Sarah's books still lined the shelves. Her coffee mug, the one with the chipped handle, still sat in the cabinet. He couldn't use it, couldn't throw it away. Her coat still hung by the door. Sometimes, late at night, he'd press his face into the fabric and breathe in, searching for any trace of her. But she was gone, and all that remained was the shape of her absence. On Thanksgiving morning, he woke to an empty house and the smell of nothing cooking. No turkey, no laughter. No Sarah humming in the kitchen while she burned the rolls and pretended she didn't. His sister Claire had called twice. His mother had sent a text with a turkey emoji and the words, "We miss you. Please come." He ignored both. Instead, he showered, dressed, and drove to the cemetery, like he did every holiday, every birthday, every ordinary Tuesday when the wait became too much. The cemetery was quiet. Frost clung to the grass. The sky was the color of old steel. Daniel walked the familiar path to her grave and sat down on the cold ground beside Sarah's headstone. He didn't cry anymore. That had stopped after the first year. Now he just sat and talked to her. "Hey," he said quietly, his breath misting in the air. "It's Thanksgiving. I know you'd be mad I'm not with Mom, but I can't. I can't do it. I can't sit at that table and pretend I'm whole." The wind moved through the trees. Leaves skittered across the grass like whispers. "I'm still here," he said. "I don't know why, but I'm still here." He traced her name with his finger. Sarah Marie Carver. "Beloved wife, I miss you," he whispered. "Every single day." And then his phone buzzed. He pulled it from his pocket, frowning. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. But something, instinct, curiosity, the universe nudging him forward, made him swipe. Hello? Silence. Then a woman's voice, soft, hesitant, trembling slightly. "Is this Daniel Carver?" "Yes. Who's this?" A pause. He could hear her breathing, nervous, uncertain. "My name is Emma Holloway. I don't know how to say this, so I'm just going to say it." Daniel frowned. "Say what?" "I think I'm your wife's sister." The world tilted. Everything went silent, the wind, the trees, his own heartbeat. "What? I know how that sounds," she said quickly, words tumbling over each other. "I know it sounds insane, but I just found out myself 3 days ago. I was adopted when I was a baby. I've been searching for my birth family for 2 years. And I took one of those DNA tests, the ancestry ones. And 3 days ago, I got a match." Daniel's hand tightened around the phone. It led me to Sarah Carver. Born Sarah Holloway in 1989, who died 3 years ago in an accident. His throat closed. That's impossible. Sarah didn't have a sister. She didn't know. Emma whispered. "Neither did I. We were separated at birth. Twins, different families, different states. I grew up in Oregon. She grew up in Vermont. We never knew each other existed. Daniel sat frozen on the grass, staring at Sarah's name carved into stone. His mind was spinning. Twins. Sarah had a twin sister. And she never knew. "Why are you calling me?" he finally managed. Emma's voice cracked. "Because I wanted to know her. And I thought, maybe you could tell me who she was." If you're still here, thank you. Subscribe if you'd like to help us share more stories like this. They met the next day. Daniel didn't plan to say yes. He'd spent the rest of Thanksgiving sitting in his apartment, staring at the wall, trying to process what he'd just heard. But something in Emma's voice, something fragile and real and desperate, made him text her back that night. "There's a diner on 4th Street, noon tomorrow." Her response came immediately. "I'll be there." He arrived early, sat in the back booth, ordered coffee he didn't drink. His hands were shaking. He didn't know what to expect. Didn't know if this was real or some elaborate scam or a grief-induced hallucination. But then the door opened, and Daniel's heart stopped. She looked exactly like Sarah. Same auburn hair catching the light as she stepped inside. Same soft slope of her shoulders. Same way of tucking a strand behind her ear as she scanned the room. Same face. But when her eyes found his, they were different, greener, warmer, and filled with the same nervous hope he felt. "Daniel?" He stood. His legs felt weak. He nodded. She walked over slowly, like she was afraid he might vanish. "Hi," she said. "Hi." They sat. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Emma's hands were folded on the table. She wore a gray sweater. No jewelry, except a simple silver bracelet. She looked like she hadn't slept. "I know this is strange," she said finally. "Strange doesn't cover it," Daniel said quietly. She laughed, a small, nervous sound. It sounded like wind chimes, just like Sarah's. They talked for 3 hours. Emma told him about growing up in Oregon, about loving the rain and hating the cold, about finding out she was adopted when she was 16 and feeling like a piece of herself had always been missing. "I always felt like half of something," she said, her voice soft. "Like there was someone out there who was supposed to be with me. And I spent years wondering if I'd ever find them." She told him about the DNA test, about the email that changed everything, about seeing Sarah's name and feeling something shift inside her, something she couldn't explain. "I looked her up," Emma said. "I found her obituary. I saw her picture, and I just stared, because it was like looking in a mirror. But it wasn't me. It was someone I never got to meet." Her eyes filled with tears. "And then I saw your name, and I thought, maybe if I couldn't know her, I could at least know the person she loved." Daniel's throat tightened. "She would have loved you," he said quietly. Emma wiped her eyes. "You don't know that." "Yes, I do." He told her about Sarah, about the way she laughed at her own jokes before anyone else did, about the way she danced in the kitchen when she thought no one was watching, about the way she cried during commercials and always rooted for the underdog, about the way she died holding a bag of oranges she'd never get to peel. Emma listened. She didn't interrupt. She didn't look away. And when he finished, she reached across the table and took his hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For letting me know her." Even like this, they started meeting every few days. Emma had taken time off work. She said she wanted to see where Sarah had lived, walk the streets she'd walked, breathe the same air. Daniel showed her everything. The park where he and Sarah had gotten engaged, the bookstore where she used to spend entire Saturdays lost in the aisles, the bench by the river where they'd sit and watch the water and talk about nothing and everything. And with every memory he shared, something strange happened. Daniel started to feel less like a ghost. He started to feel like a person again. Emma was like Sarah, but she wasn't Sarah. She was quieter, more cautious. She asked questions instead of filling silences. She drank tea, not coffee. She read poetry, not thrillers. She listened to jazz, not classic rock. But when she smiled, it was the same light. When she laughed, it was the same music. And when she looked at him, really looked at him, Daniel felt something he thought had died 3 years ago. Hope. One evening, they sat on the bench by the river. The sun was setting. The water glowed copper and gold. "Can I ask you something?" Emma said. "Yeah. Do you think it's wrong that I look like her?" Daniel turned to her. "Wrong how? Like I'm some kind of replacement, some cruel trick the universe is playing on you." He shook his head slowly. "You're not a trick, Emma." "Then what am I?" He looked at her. Really looked. At the way the light caught her face. The way her hands rested in her lap. The way she was here, present, real. "You're a second chance," he said quietly. Her breath caught. At what? At believing that good things can still happen. They didn't fall in love quickly. It wasn't a whirlwind. It wasn't fate crashing down like thunder. It was slow, careful, built on trust and grief and the quiet understanding that love, real love, doesn't replace what was lost. It honors it. By Christmas, Emma had decided to stay in town. By New Year's, they were having dinner twice a week. By Valentine's Day, Daniel realized he was in love with her. Not because she looked like Sarah, but because she was Emma. And Emma was teaching him that his heart was bigger than he thought. One night in early spring, they stood in his apartment. Emma was looking at Sarah's books. "Can I tell you something?" she said. "Always. I used to be jealous of her." Daniel frowned. "Why?" "Because she got to live the life I never had. She got to know you, love you, build something real." She turned to him, eyes shining. "But I'm not jealous anymore." "Why not?" "Because she led me to you." Daniel crossed the room, took her hands in his. "I spent 3 years thinking my life was over," he said. "And then you called." "Do you regret answering?" He shook his head. "It's the best thing I ever did." 1 year later, on Thanksgiving, they stood in the same diner where they'd first met. Emma smiled at him across the table. "You know what I'm grateful for?" "What?" "That I found her, even if I never got to meet her. Because finding her meant finding you." Daniel reached across the table, took her hand. "She gave me you," he said. Even after she was gone, Emma's eyes glistened. Maybe that was the point all along. Final image, the bench by the river. 2 silhouettes. The water glowing in the fading light. Some people believe in fate. Others believe in coincidence. Daniel didn't know what he believed anymore. But he knew this. Sometimes the universe breaks your heart, not to punish you, but to prepare you for a love you didn't know you were ready for. And sometimes love comes back, not the same, but just as real, just as true. Subscribe. Tell us from which city you're watching, and share your story below. You never know who might need to hear it next.